Even though I'm not the biggest fan of Emperor Palpatine returning in Rise of Skywalker, it kinda makes sense. We all know the clones were created to kill the Jedi, but was Palpatine testing the kaminon cloners to see how good they were and if they could clone him? In the Bad Batch, it looks like Nala Se is being forced to work for the Empire, potentially to clone the Emperor, and we all know Palpatine tried numerous times to clone and recreate himself, but he also could have had the help of Dr. Cylo as well. A scientist who successfully mapped his personality and could be implanted into a clone, functionally making him immortal. Palpatine probably kept him around to see if himself could be cloned like Cylo was, except for cloning a scientist and a Sith Lord have to be two different challenges, and while I'm not an expert on cloning in Star Wars, I don't know if Force sensitivity could be transferred, but Palpatine had a way around that as well. In episode 3, Palpatine hints at being able to create and save life through the Force, and he had an obsession of being immortal. His successful return was probably a combination of these three things. Transferring his will through the Force into a clone that had the help of cybernetics to stay alive.
You'll die first.
I have died before. The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Just cloning himself, memories, and personality into a clone like Cylo did probably didn't transfer over his Force abilities, and transferring his will into a clone was probably too much for it to handle and it died, and it's most likely that Snoke was proof that Palpatine could transfer his will into a clone, but not nearly as powerful as Palpatine was, and Snoke was probably the only surviving member of numerous batches of Palpatine attempting to clone himself. And Dr. Cylo believed that evolution was only possible for the universe if organic species were upgraded with cybernetics. And his research in cybernetics led him to believe that technological superiority was inevitable and that the mystical aspects of the Force were obsolete. Palpatine probably didn't agree with the last part, but the combination of cybernetics and the Force was the evolution Palpatine was looking for. After years of Palpatine trying to reincarnate himself, it was successful, but only with the help of cybernetics to help keep his clone body alive. And even though I'm not the biggest fan of his return, it is interesting to see through Star Wars timeline Palpatine making steps towards his immortality, and if this was all part of his plan. But the real question is if the evil genius will make a comeback again. So with that, subscribe if you would like, and until next video, goodbye.